Good morning, good morning, good morning. As always, I am excited to be able to hang out with you. It is, as I always say, the best day of the week. Wednesday, yeah, man, hump day. And it doesn't matter how you started the week. Here we are. We are at the middle of the week. And as always, we meet at this, well, usually a little bit earlier, 10 o'clock Eastern, to chew the fat and figure out how we're going to walk hand in hand to get over the hump and finish the week strong. So, as always, I appreciate you choosing to hang out with me. Welcome. Always fun. I often speak about keep on pushing, and I mentioned that it's not just about persistence. It's not just about stiffening your spine in the face of all obstacles, right? Of course, that's an important part of the philosophy. But first and foremost, I would argue that it's about growth, right? It's about figuring out how to navigate these ever-changing landscape that life throws at us, right? We always face them. So it's about growth. And in fact, I would argue that if we're not growing, if we remain in our comfort zone, as it were, then, there are no obstacles. There are no obstacles that we have to deal with, right? We'd be cruising along easy street, as it were. But seriously, though, seriously, what kind of life would that be if you just spend your time living in your comfort zone, cruising along easy street, no growth, just the status quo day in, day out? I mean, I guess that works for some people. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for people who embrace this keep on pushing philosophy. And the reason for that is because as human beings, we are designed for growth. We're supposed to grow. And so the reluctance or the refusal on the part of some people to do that, to grow, is really robbing them and robbing the world of the tremendous contribution that they could make to everyone else. And I think even more important, more dire than that, it is robbing them of a life of fulfillment and a life of purpose, right? You're just kind of going through the motions, and that's not what we were created to do. So, you're in your comfort zone, and without any attempts to grow, you don't build muscles, you don't strengthen those muscles, so that when life does throw its curveballs, as we're sitting in our little comfort zone, our little cocoons, as it were, when life throws those curveballs at us, we're going to be ill-equipped to deal with those challenges, right? Like, I don't know, COVID-19, a global pandemic. If you are not the kind of person who is working during I'm going to say, the good times, those times when life isn't really challenging us in a significant way, to grow your muscles by challenging yourself, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. When events totally out of your control takes place, you're ill-equipped. You won't be able to deal with it. And that's just part of the journey of life. So keep on pushing is a lifetime process through which we strive to become the best we can be, right? Through which we strive to achieve self-mastery, which is what I want to talk about this morning, self-mastery. I think the biggest question that every single one of us have to answer is perhaps the most important question when it comes on to personal success, achieving self-mastery, reaching your full potential, as it were. Your biggest question is, what do I want to become? Not so much what do I want to have, but that's part and parcel of the process, I think. But who do I want to become? What do I want to become? What impact do I want to leave on the world? How do I want to inspire, impact, influence the people that are around me within my power, right? That's the biggest question. And so this process of self-mastery is this process of continuously working on yourself until you are able to develop and evolve into that person that you want to become, right? Is the ability to recognize and understand and control um, and make most of the physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual self, right? In my reading, um, someone described or compared life to chess, right? And in chess, there are a limitless number of viable moves that you can make, right? And of course, you're free to make any move you want to make on the chessboard, but know that every single move that you make generates all future moves, right? It influences all future moves. So there, something that I've spoken about many times, consequences to the actions that you take. So you're free. You are free to do what you want. You're free to make any move you want to make on the chessboard of life. Know, though, that there are some consequences. There's never an escape, even from the smallest actions that we make. We definitely live in a world where our attention, I would say, is dominated by a focus on the external, on the physical world, right? And as a result, it minimizes the importance of the internal and the mental world. Self-mastery is about being in control of your internal thought processes that guide your emotions, your habits, and your behaviors, so that when you do make your move on the chessboard of life, you recognize that, man, you know what? There are consequences to my actions. I have to take responsibility for those actions in order to become the best I can be. So in addition then to directing our thoughts, in addition to directing the actions that we take towards a particular outcome, self-mastery is also about this idea of how you respond and react, right? Or the fact that you would respond rather than react. And what do I mean by that? Respond versus react. Well, when we respond, what we're doing is that we're acting with intention. We're acting with purpose. We're acting with a sense of awareness, as it were. And then when we react, it's very visceral and without reason. So if you think about, I don't know, driving down the highway. I live in New York here, where driving down the highway in New York can get rather challenging at times, right? So somebody cuts you off and you have a choice, right? You can respond or you can react. You can respond by just kind of smiling and going about your way, recognizing that, any other action that I take will not be in line, will not be in keeping with that person that I want to become. That's response. Or you could react. You could start to tailgate the person, try to cut them off, try to flip them the bird, whatever it is. Again, acting in a very visceral way without any reason, right? Frank Outlaw, his name is, an American businessman. He says these words: watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become a character. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. This is self-mastery encapsulated in that one quote. That, as I said earlier, you have the wherewithal, you have the ability to control your actions, control your thoughts, control your actions, and then you have to accept the consequences for those actions. So self-mastery then is really a process of knowing yourself, growing yourself, improving yourself, creating yourself. Remember that big question, that most important question that we all have to ask ourselves: who or what do I want to become? Right? So self-mastery is the process through which we get to that space where we become that person that we decide beforehand who we want to become. So this morning I want to share with you then 3 ideas on how you can develop self-mastery, how you can get yourself on the road to self-mastery, get on the road to becoming self-actualized, i.e. becoming that person that in your mind you want to become. So as usual, my friends over here in LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, let's jump to the banners. The first point, the first way I think you can develop self-mastery is by developing self-awareness, by becoming self-aware. Self-awareness is really having that insight, having an understanding of our personality, our values, our tendencies, our needs, our beliefs. And in the process of analyzing those thoughts and tendencies and beliefs and emotions, it helps us to really determine our values and our principles. Pull that one up there, right? So self-awareness empowers the discovery process by enabling us to kind of step away from ourselves, right? It's like, almost like you have that alter ego, that other body that allows you to step away from yourself and examine the way you see yourself. And as you develop self-awareness, you're able then to change your thoughts, which in turn, as our friend Frank Outlaw just reminded us, change our thoughts, which in turn change our emotions, and ultimately change our actions, and eventually change our destiny, right? We get to chart our own destiny. So, it's a fact that when you can understand yourself properly, it's really easy to achieve control over your life, over your actions, as it were, right? Our thoughts are continuously taking us, to the past. We live in the past a lot, and we spend a lot of time in the future as well. Self-awareness kind of gets us back in the present, because this is where we have the power. This is where we can actually take actions to guide our lives in the direction that we want it to go. We can't change things from the past, and we cannot really change anything in the future except through the actions that we take now. All right, so that's self-awareness. Self-awareness, friends, leads to an accumulation of self-knowledge, which is the next point I want to bring up here. It's the second of my 3 areas that I think help us to achieve self-mastery, right? Self-awareness leads to an accumulation of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge helps us to identify what we know about ourselves. It helps us as individuals to understand, what we stand for. Understand our purpose, our values, our principles, right? Those things are really important. I had some heated conversations over the weekend, and the person I was talking to, we're talking about social issues primarily, and they were kind of in the middle. They are neutral, and my argument is that, well, what do you value? What's important to you? Again, going back to that most important question that we have to ask ourselves and answer for ourselves as individuals. What do we want to become? Who do we want to become? Right? When you become self-aware, or you improve your level of self-awareness, it leads to this knowledge, the self-knowledge that helps us to understand, hey, I must stand for something. There must be a purpose for my life other than just living for me and living for today. And so with self-knowledge, you're able to understand your strengths and how you can build on them. But of course, you're able to also understand the areas where you're not so strong, where you're a little bit weak, and you need to make improvement. And so you become aware, more knowledgeable of when you're at your best. All right. And again, it's this consistent process that we go through. It's not a one and done. Takes me to my third point, which is self-development. Now, here's the thing. without action, knowledge and awareness doesn't lead to change, right? So we start with this idea of we need to become more self-aware. We need to, which leads to self-knowledge. But then the challenge with these two things is that they do not require action. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's easy, cheesy kind of steps. I believe it requires a tremendous amount of introspection, and I describe that often as the most difficult work that any of us have to do, right? To kind of take a step back, kind of breathe, and dig deep to kind of to understand who we are, to develop our self-awareness. That takes effort. That takes a tremendous amount of effort. But it doesn't, it's not the kind of effort that leads or action that leads to change. It really doesn't. So because, they say knowledge is power, you could argue that knowledge is really trivial. You have all this self-awareness and self-knowledge. If you do nothing with it, then nothing happens, right? Self-awareness and self-knowledge, again, has no real purpose other than to the fact that it does lead us to self-development, or it should lead us to self-development, right? It's this idea that you're willing to take action now that you have become more aware, you understand who you are, the principles that you stand for, your beliefs. What are you going to do to take action? And that's it. Self-awareness, self-knowledge gives us the skills to understand our core beliefs. And then, we change our thoughts, our emotions. And now through self-development, you start to change your behavior, right? In fact, the self-knowledge and the self-awareness, if we're doing this correctly, if we're really putting our hearts and souls into it, because we do want to become that person that we decide on the front end that we want to become, the self-knowledge, the self-awareness makes the action easier, right? And in the process, puts us, I would argue, on the road to realizing our full potential, puts us on the road to achieving self-mastery. Because again, this is a constant process of doing the things that we need to do to get better, to mold us, to develop us, to help us to evolve into that person that we have decided that we want to become. Self-mastery, self-actualization, right? Again, as I said earlier, we are created for growth, man. We are created for growth as human beings, right? That's why we've been given this little thing called a mind and a brain to think and to solve, and not just to react, but to respond, because we are acting with intention and with purpose and in reason. And so we get to be so much better than life circumstances would suggest that we ought to be. All right. So wanted to share those thoughts with you just as I'm wrapping up, and forgot to unplug the phone. So you're going to hear a ringing there. But as always, thank you so much for chiming in, for joining. Looking forward to connecting with you next week. Bring a friend. Let's shoot the breeze together. And don't forget to stop over to my website, not my website, but my YouTube channel. Let me pull it up over here. YouTube.com/keep on pushing always. We have some amazing guests who share their experiences and their insights that I think you're going to find truly valuable as well. So until we connect next week, you know what you should do, right? Keep on pushing.